You know, I was looking through all of my videos on this channel, my main channel, and it's because there are people who criticize my videos of being staunchly anti-left, and I was like, I don't know, is that true? Because I'm pretty supportive of left-wing policy positions, taxation, etc. What would make this anti-left specifically and not anti-regressive or reactionary? And the reality is, for the most part, like even on this channel, most of my videos are kind of center, kind of balanced. I mean, I get people messaging me all the time who actually watch my videos who say that I talk about stories, but from like a center or center-left position. And I'm like, I think that makes sense, right? So I'm looking at this story. This is kind of big. It says school pays male student $47,000 after it punished him based on nothing more than an accusation. And I started thinking about, they say this is a landmark due process case. And I was like, why is it that I'm interested in this story? Likely going to do a video about it. And why is that considered opposed to the left? Is it that generally the left is reactionary? And what reactionary means is it's a word it's a specific description of politics. It refers to, I believe, the French Revolution, where right-wingers and traditionalists reacted to the revolution. But typically it means those who want to revert things back to the way they once were. Right. These are people who are trying to get rid of the rights that we've earned, like due process. And so this, to me, is reactionary. Like it's people who are trying to regress the regressive left. I support left-wing policy. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with people who want to strip rights away from other people, who pretend not to. So let's read this story. Maybe we'll touch on this a little bit more. From Ash Shao, a landmark due process case that led to an appeals court ruling that students need to be able to cross-examine their accusers and witnesses against them has come to an end with the university and the accused student reaching a settlement. The University of Cincinnati has agreed to pay a student $47,152 in attorney's fees and will end his suspension from the university and drop all disciplinary sanctions, according to WCPO Cincinnati. The outcome of the student's school disciplinary hearing will not appear in his transcript, and the school will remove the responsible finding from his record. UC will also make no public statements about the case. The student, in turn, will not contact his female accuser or publicly disclose her identity. Interesting. This appears to be the first time UC has ever settled with an accused student. The case arises from an incident involving John Doe and Jane Roe, as they are referred to in court documents reviewed by the Daily Wire, that occurred on September 6, 2015. The two UC students met on the dating app Tinder and sent messages back and forth for a little over 2 weeks before meeting in person. The two talked and flirted for a little bit in John's room in his apartment off campus before they began to kiss and make out. The encounter escalated fairly quickly, according to John's lawsuit. The two removed their clothing. John took out a condom. Jane, according to the lawsuit, asked John to hold on before the evening escalated to intercourse. John obliged, and the two talked a little longer before engaging in intercourse. After they finished, they continued to spend time together in John's room. Jane, according to the lawsuit, told him she didn't want their encounter to be a one-night stand. John, however, did not call her again and couldn't contact her through Tinder anymore. A month later, Jane accused John of sexual assault. She said the encounter occurred on August 30th, 2015, that she met John on Tinder but had agreed to meet him for dinner. She told a UC interviewer that she was going to study after the dinner, but John suggested she do so at his apartment, to which she agreed. She said she studied while sitting on his bed and drinking a glass of wine, which lowered her inhibitions. Oh, dear Lord, here we go. And what she and John talked about, she said they flirted. Jane said the two started kissing and that John kept progressing, the physical contact to which she never said no. The two engaged in oral proclivities and digital penetration. She said the two had intercourse and that John tried to engage in anal. Wow, this is getting pretty graphic. This is going to get age restricted. Jane said during his initial interview that John walked her to her car after the encounter. A week after the initial interview, Jane was asked more specific questions on November 6th. She now claimed John was forceful with her during their encounter and said John made her feel guilty, even though she never gave any definitive statements, instead saying she responded, "I don't know," to some of his conversation topics. She also said she flirted with John and kissed him, engaged in intercourse in multiple positions, including her on top, and that she performed oral on John. She also said she asked John to walk to her car. None of this made UC interviewers question whether an assault actually occurred, as they went forward with the accusation. More than a month after Jane went to campus officials, she reported the incident to campus police, telling them she went to a house after a date with a man later identified as John. She told campus police, that she and John were kissing and flirting on the bed, but that she set a line for herself for no intercourse. She also told them John was forceful with her, yet police noted that she was able to move about his room freely, texting her friends and using the restroom. The campus police investigation was sent to the Cincinnati Police Department and closed without charges against John. So let me guess. We'll pause right here, and this is a surprisingly graphic story for the Daily Wire, I might add. But it sounds like they're trying to paint the narrative. The Daily Wire is trying to set up the narrative that this woman didn't want a one-night stand. The dude did. She got mad later and then filed charges against him, and there was no evidence. The police department dropped it, but the guy still got punished. I think that's where we're headed, so let's read on. John was not informed that he was being accused of assault until February 19th, 2016. A week later, on February 24th, Jane was interviewed again. This time she said repeatedly that John was strange or creepy. She now said she sat on his lap when they kissed, but described her consent for his removal of her dress as gray. When John was interviewed about the incident, he said everything was consensual. Interview notes for him contained editorial comments from the interviewer. Such comments did not appear in any notes about Jane's interviews. So, it sounds like a story where they're clearly biased against him. I'll tell you all this, right? Because I don't know if I need to read through all the details. I want to kind of get to the point. It is basically a fact. Whoever complains first wins, okay? I once got arrested when I was younger for nonsense reasons, like, I don't want to get into too much detail, but basically, I was accused of something I didn't do. I had no idea what was going on. These guys, security guards, basically detained us, police arrested us, and when I complained saying it was the guards who assaulted me, the police wrote up a police report with lies in it, false statements, because, and I said, I want to file charges against them. They said, you can't do that. We don't file charges like that. And I'm like, these guys attacked me, okay? Why am I getting arrested? Because they called the police. And in fact, when they were attacking me, I did try calling the police, and they took my phone and turned it off. What was I supposed to do? The police show up, these guys say, that's the guy who broke the law, and I got arrested for it. So it's not surprising then to hear that they're already treating this guy like he's guilty, and that they frequently do. They say Jane didn't even attend the campus hearing regarding her claims against John, which gave him no opportunity to cross-examine her or question her story. John said in his lawsuit that if he had been able to question Jane, he would have been able to pick out inconsistencies in her statement and show that she received generous accommodations from the school, changes to homework deadlines, grades, class schedules, test schedules, and even receiving job opportunities, which created an incentive for her to claim she was a victim. John was not able to question any of Jane's witnesses or even the campus investigators who put together the investigation file for hearing members. Without being able to question any of the allegations against him, John was found responsible by UC and suspended. He appealed and lost, so he sued the school. What makes this case so important is that it reached the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which created a precedent-setting ruling, stating that cross-examination is important, especially when the case boils down to a he said, she said, where credibility is at stake. The ruling has been cited multiple times since. It's also likely that this September 2017 ruling helped pave the road for the settlement reached in the case. Josh Engel, one of John's attorneys, told the Daily Wire in a statement, "We are glad the case has been resolved so my client can get his degree and move on with his career." So seems like a rather big deal, and it seems like this is going to have a sweeping effect on potentially all, maybe Title IX cases at many of these universities. So if you're not familiar, Betsy DeVos, I'm not sure where we're at with this, but she's basically increasing the rights of the accused in a lot of these instances. Many people on the left are upset about this. Due process is a very important rule and a good thing, and the presumption of innocence should be protected. And that's not a conservative position. But for tribal reasons, I think we're seeing the left basically opposed to this. What this basically means, as far as I understand, is that those who are being accused now are going to have way more rights when it comes to false accusations. And I want to make one more point that frustrates me to no end. And let me see if I can find this part. Yeah, here we go. She said she studied while sitting on his bed and drinking a glass of wine, which lowered her inhibitions. So there's a really funny analogy when it comes to this drinking thing, right? So if a guy gets drunk and hooks up with a woman, it's not assault. If a woman gets drunk and a guy hooks up with that woman, it is assault. Isn't that weird? Why does it function that way? And I think it's because people infantilize women. They literally treat women like children. Okay? No, if you're an adult and you drink, you're responsible for what happens when you get drunk. I'm not saying you're responsible if someone takes advantage of you to an extreme degree and like forcefully takes you or tricks you. And there is a difference between someone who purposefully gets someone drunk to try and hook up with them. However, you choose to drink, right? If someone grabs you, pins you down, and shoves booze in your mouth, yeah, okay, that's force. If you go out and you get drunk and then you do things while you're drunk, that's your responsibility, okay? And it's fairly controversial for some reason, but we'll use the analogy of like drinking and driving. If you drink and then you drive, it doesn't matter that your inhibitions were lowered. You shouldn't have done that. You will get in trouble. We shouldn't make exceptions to these rules for some circumstances and not others. Men can be victims, women can be victims, women can be perpetrators, men can be perpetrators. If you both drink, you're drunk. Like, plain and simple. So I think there's nuance here, don't get me wrong. Like, obviously, like I mentioned, if a dude purposefully is trying to get a chick drunk, for the most part, there may be nuance there. But I will kind of lean towards, look, man, if you choose to drink, you chose to enter these situations. You know what I mean? So there is a fine line between when you are responsible and when you aren't in reality, right? Now, for the most part, I don't like the idea of blaming victims, but I also don't like the idea of assigning victimhood to someone who chose to engage in certain behavior. Plain and simple. Anyway, I believe I have another video coming up I've got one more video coming up, so stick around. It'll be on this channel, and I will see you in a moment.